168 billion trillion. And that's the approximate number of hash attempts miners collectively perform to find a single valid Bitcoin block. Yet anyone on Earth can verify that solution with exactly one computation. The entire security of a global monetary network depends on the lopsided math, billions of trillions of guesses to create, one check to verify. That's not hypothetical. That's how Bitcoin mining works right now. Every 10 minutes around the clock. That number isn't trivia. It's the engine that makes the system work. Alice just sent Bitcoin to Bob. Her transaction is now floating across the network, sitting in what's called the mempool, the waiting room for unconfirmed transactions. It's not yet permanent. Without a central bank to stamp it approved, there's no obvious way to declare it legitimate and final. This is the fundamental problem of digital money without a central authority. Mining is the decentralized answer. Thousands of competing computers around the world race to bundle waiting transactions into tamper-proof blocks. When a miner wins the race, their proposed block joins Bitcoin's permanent record, the blockchain. No single entity approves it. The network does through a competitive process built on raw computation. The competition hinges on a hash function. A hash function is a one-way scrambler. Feed in any data, and out comes a fixed-length string of characters. Bitcoin uses HA256. Three properties matter. First, determinism. The same input always produces the exact same output. Second, unpredictability. Change even one character in the input, and the output transforms completely. No pattern to exploit. Third, irreversibility. You cannot work backwards from the output to recover the input. Feed in the word hello. Out comes a specific hex string. Feed in hello again, identical output. Now change just the last letter from O to P. The output is entirely different. No resemblance to the first. These properties mean there's no shortcut to finding a desired output. The only strategy is to guess. Here's the mining loop. Each miner assembles a candidate block, their proposed bundle of transactions, their lottery ticket. They feed it through SHA-256 and check whether the output starts with a required number of leading zeros, and that's the template set by the protocol. If the output doesn't match, and it almost never does, the miner changes a small value called the nonce and hashes again, billions of times per second across thousands of miners worldwide. This loop repeats trillions upon trillions of times until one miner gets lucky. The hash output matches the template. The miner broadcasts the valid block to the network. Every other node verifies it with a single hash computation and accepts it. The lottery resets. The race begins again. Miners don't do this for free. Mining serves two purposes at once. First, network security. Miners collect rewards only by following consensus rules. The rules every valid block must satisfy, enforced independently by every node on the network. Include an invalid transaction and the entire block gets rejected. Second, Bitcoin issuance. Every block contains a coinbase transaction, a special entry that creates new Bitcoins and pays them to the winning miner, along with transaction fees. The issuance schedule is fixed and decreasing. No central authority decides how much new Bitcoin enters circulation. Mining replaces both a central bank and a clearinghouse. Now, let's trace a real transaction through this system. Alice broadcasts her payment to Bob. It enters the mempool, the waiting room. About 5 minutes later, a miner somewhere in the world finds a valid block, and Alice's transaction is inside it. That's one confirmation. Her transaction is now part of the blockchain. Approximately 19 minutes after that, another miner finds the next valid block and builds it directly on top of the block containing Alice's transaction. That's 2 confirmations. Alice's transaction hasn't been re-verified. It was validated once and accepted. What's new is that another block of proof of work now sits above it. Each additional block pushes Alice's transaction deeper into the chain, 3 confirmations, 4, 5. With each new block, reversing her transaction requires more and more cumulative computation. Her payment to Bob grows more secure with every passing minute. One confirmation provides real security. Consider what undoing it requires. Alice wants to cheat, send Bitcoin to Bob, receive his goods, then reverse the payment. She needs to build an alternative chain where her payment never happened. That means mining a competing block that excludes her transaction, then extending that chain faster than the honest network extends the real one. After one confirmation, Alice must secretly mine 2 blocks, while honest miners produce just 1. Unless she controls more than half the network's total computing power, the honest chain wins. Critical point, even a majority attacker cannot create invalid transactions. They cannot spend someone else's coins. Consensus rules hold regardless of hash power. All an attacker can do is reverse their own past payments. Compare the strategies. Honest path, mine 1 block, collect the full block reward plus transaction fees, 0 risk. Attack path, mine 2 or more blocks in secret, succeed only by outpacing the entire global network, with reward limited to just the reversed transactions value. Honest mining wins. That analysis covered 1 confirmation. Now scale it to 6. With each additional block built on top of Alice's transaction, the cost of reversal grows exponentially. At 6 confirmations, an attacker must secretly remine all 6 blocks and produce a 7th to overtake the honest chain. That requires more cumulative hash work than the entire rest of the network produced during that same window of time. The energy cost would be staggering. The probability of success vanishing. 6 confirmations became the conventional threshold for practical irreversibility, not because of a formal rule, but because the economics make reversal absurd. The deeper a transaction is buried in the chain, the more permanent it becomes. Alice's payment to Bob is now locked deep in the blockchain. Bob can now spend that output, say paying a web designer named Gopesh for a new website. When Bob creates this transaction, he extends the ownership chain. Value flowed from a miner who created the coins in a Coinbase transaction through a series of owners to Alice, then to Bob, and then now to Gopesh. Each transfer is a signed transaction, cryptographically authorized by the sender's private key. Gopesh can spend those coins onward. The chain grows. This is Bitcoin in motion, a living, extending record of value transfer from owner to owner with no central record keeper. Mining replaces institutional trust with physics and economics. The energy miners spend is not wasted, it's the cost of a security system that makes fraud economically irrational. The asymmetry at the core, hard to produce, easy to verify, means every participant can independently confirm the integrity of the entire system. A mining farm with thousands of machines and a phone running a lightweight wallet both rely on the same math, no permission needed, no trusted third party. Every 10 minutes on average, another block is added. With each one, the history it records becomes a little more permanent, not because anyone decreases it, but because the math makes undoing it absurdly expensive.